This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
What are we focusing on tomorrow? What's the biggest game that you want to talk about that's tomorrow here in Arkansas?
Oh, first, I'm doing great, and second, I need to tip the DJ some good interludes the last couple weeks. Little Beastie Boys, I think that is again.
Captain Matty T
I've had
for that.
Beastie Boys a couple weeks in a row now.
Well, we'll take your request for next week.
Just whatever, I guess.
You know, if you want what you want next week, we'll throw it in there. Whatever you want.
I like it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, a big game in Northwest Arkansas. This, wouldn't have thought maybe to begin with the season this was going to be a big game, but it is. And before the season started, I really liked Bentonville West. I try to pick out a team that, maybe it's going to be a breakout. And Bentonville West was a good candidate with, 14 starters returning, a lot of guys that played, younger that are now matured. And so I went with them. And, it hasn't quite worked out that way. They've been a little up and down so far. Got blown out by Cabot and, are kind of trying to find their way in the league here. But Rogers really kind of has become that team. And they're undefeated. They have really built off of last year. They had a good year, but they had two good players, Noah Goodshield and Josh Shepard, their quarterback and running back, respectively, that graduated. So what you were looking at there was, well, okay, they made some good progress, but they may take a step back because they've lost two really good players, but that's not true. Chad Harbison has done a good job of plugging and playing, and we've seen that with Fayetteville and some other teams. When you're a good program, you are able to put kids in there, and Rogers has done that. Dane Williams, he's the son of Dale Williams, defensive coordinator. Dane was a defensive guy. He moves to offense. He is lighting it up offensively. I think, other than Drake Lindsay, probably one of the better, statistical guys in that 7A West, maybe even the state. Really, really, really hot right now. And so that's helped them a lot. Ty Cunningham is a good receiver for them. Last week they had a huge win. JT Miller hits a 38-yard field goal as time's running down to beat Fayetteville. They hadn't beaten them in a long time. So they kind of now are the team that I thought Bentonville West was. But Bentonville West has a chance. If they win this game, they're going to be right there in the mix. And this is a big one for both these teams because, Bentonville probably is the favorite right now, although the gap is not very big. Fayetteville has that loss last week, but they still look pretty good. Their two losses are to Rogers and to Cabot narrowly, and then you've got Bentonville West there and Rogers. So this game right here, Rogers wins it, and they're in contention and control their own destiny for a conference championship. So you got a big game with Bentonville that would be lined up soon. So this is a really big one for both of them. Bentonville West can get back in the mix, and Rogers is looking to stay in it. So it's a huge game.
Tell me about Harrison taking on Shiloh. And Harrison's lost a couple of tight games, but 3-2 looks like a team that's played mostly well this year. Shiloh's won 4 consecutive games, and they've got this one at home. Yeah.
Shiloh is one of the better teams in 5A. I think they have a legitimate chance of moving up from 4A to 5A, winning a state championship. Robinson is in the same boat, and they both were in the championship game in 4A last year. Robinson got the best of them in there, but they could meet again in 5A somehow. It would be very interesting. But for now, Shiloh is just focused on trying to win the West, and it's a difficult league. Harrison, looked really good. They beat Springdale. They lost narrowly to Batesville, his stock has really gone up. And then last week, probably on the play of the year, one of the plays of the year, probably the play of the year was when Kane Archer threw the Hail Mary to Grant Carnes to beat Northside. But right next to it is probably the flea flicker that Prairie Grove pulled off. to win in the final seconds again, last week. So against Harrison. And so Harrison's kind of reeling a little bit, but Braden Long, a good quarterback for them, or a good running back for them, ran for 300 yards last week. Mason Ketterman's a junior quarterback. He's filled in good. And we've talked about Talon Stevens, who plays everywhere. He's a receiver, a DB. He's scored touchdowns in every facet this year. He's picked off passes. He's going to have a good game again to beat Shiloh, and I think they're going to have to run the ball well with Long and kind of keep the ball away from the Saints. Eli Wisdom, one of the better quarterbacks in the state for Shiloh, and Bodie Neal had a really big receiving game last week. He's a real good receiver on that perimeter. He and Wisdom work well together. So it's going to be a tough task again for Harrison, but they need to kind of leave last week in the rearview mirror and see if they can win this one. They'd still be in position, to maybe win the West.
We had a question, and I know you wanted to talk about Boonville visiting Greenland. I didn't realize that Boonland had a kid that ran for 307 yards, and we had a texter ask if that's a school record for Boonville. I'm not sure, if you know the answer to that, but 307 is quite a big number. What do you see in Boonville traveling to Greenland?
A huge number, and when I get off here, I can check with Glenn Parrish. He's the communications director at Boonville and the almanac of all things Boonville football. I'm not sure if it's a record, but it's one of the best rushing performances we've seen in the state this year. Goff did a great job. They beat West Fork handily. This is another big game for them. Greenland's 1-1. Boonville, there's several games here this week in that 1-3A that there's a couple teams that are sitting there at the top that are undefeated, and Charleston being another one of them. So Boonville just trying to keep on rolling. They lost to Harding Academy, but they, that was a non-conference game. Now Harding Academy's 4A. So we think Boonville has a legitimate shot at getting to Little Rock. This league is going to present some challenges the next couple weeks. I think a couple of teams coming out of here could go deep in the playoffs. I think even if Boonville was to lose, still feel good about them because this league's tough. Greenland, as a good coach, and Lee Larkin been there a long time, and they're going to be ready for them. But I think Boonville, the running game is going to help them win this one. And both teams like to run it. So, but I think Boonville kind of is a team that's really, one of the better ones in the state, and I think they'll, probably prove that again Friday night.
Mm-hmm. Nate, we had a texter text in all the way back into hour one. He wanted to make sure that we got this question in for you. So, Pointer fan in Van Buren, he already talked about Rogers, but he wants to know who's the biggest surprise in Arkansas football this year. Is it Rogers? Is it Little Rock Catholic, or is it somebody else?
Yeah, both of those teams would fit the bill. Catholic, for me, and I know they're not really in the coverage area, but Catholic is to me one of the biggest, probably the biggest. I mean, when they beat North Little Rock like that, they beat them, I think 23-6. I was stunned and didn't know what to think of it. And then they came back and they kept winning. They beat West Memphis last week, and they're not only a candidate to win that league, but now you've got to consider them as a contender in the playoffs. And the East is a little bit lesser of a conference than the West, and we talk about the West every week a lot of times with Greenwood, who is off this week, and Lake Hamilton and Pulaski Academy, Little Rock Christian. But Catholic feels like they can play with anybody, and they feel like they were in the 7A Central. They would have been competitive in that, and that's easy to say when you move down. But they are a much improved team, so I think they would be. But Rogers is right there. Harbison. Just one more thing on them. He's done a great job. I think, like I said, when you can lose a couple good players and you're kind of in the infancy of your climb, and then to come back the next year and maybe even be better. That shows you're doing something right in your program. That a young Dane Williams can step in and do just what Goodshield was doing. That's a credit to him, but it's also a credit to the coaching staff. So I think I think he probably answered his own question there. I agree with him.
Another matchup that you sent us, it should be a good one. Lavaca at West Fork. How do you see that one turning out?
Lavaca, hey, that's another team that you could put them as 1C. I wouldn't have picked them to be 5-0 right now. And Mark Headley, the veteran coach, pulling all the right strings. Maddox Noel last week in a win over Hackett, 3 touchdowns passing, 3 touchdowns running, or 1 touchdown running. He had 88 yards on the ground. He's really talented. And Dakota Hartsfield, he's rushed for 488 yards and 6 touchdowns. So their offense is rolling, and they're going to be tested when they don't want to look past West Fork, but West Fork started off kind of hot, 3-0, and then lost a couple games. This will be a tough game, but I think Lavaca should win. It's going to be both teams like to run it kind of rugged. This league is a real physical league, but I think we can look ahead, and I think what's going to really determine how good they are is those games with Charleston and Boonville that are coming up. This one's not going to be easy at West Fork, but I think they can win it. I think their offense will produce enough firepower to beat West Fork, and West Fork cooling off a little bit, but they definitely don't want to overlook them. But this league, I mentioned a couple games this league on purpose because there's some good small town football here, and I think that, like I said before, a couple of teams in this league could surprise some people. Not just maybe if it's Charleston and Boonville that come out of it, or Lavaca, but another team could do that too. It's that good.
Let's ask about the Panthers and the Leopards. We got a text in from Bobby in Ashdown. He's his team's 5-0. We got Shamar Easter, an Arkansas tight end commit. So what do you think? What do you think you see in this?
Yeah, they've got a good quarterback too to go with Easter, and they're I don't know if I'd have had them 5-0 either. Even though there were some good things to think about them coming out. Playing at Malvern, they've got some good talent there on offense. This should be kind of a shootout type of game, I think, and it's going to be showcased here in the local media in Little Rock pretty good. It's kind of one of the games of the week, and so it's a big game for both teams. I think Ashdown's undefeated, one of their better starts. But playing at Malvern, that's going to be tough. I like Ashdown's offense and Easter and on the quarterback. So I think that they'll pull it out. But I think it'll be exciting game. A lot of points scored.
Have we done Charleston and Mansfield yet? I don't think we haven't brought that one up. I know that's a game you wanted to touch on too.
Yeah, that's another game from that the 1-3A. Brandon Scott is a quarterback that, in your neck of the woods, people have heard about him, but I don't know if he gets the acclaim he should statewide. He's a real talented athlete, 3 touchdowns last week. Threw a couple, one to Reese Mercheska and Brevin Ketter. Mercheska returned, he's a linebacker, and he returned, a ball or a pass, 45 yards for a touchdown. They've beaten Mansfield 13 of the last 16 times, and the last 2 were 88-7. But I think this will be a closer game. Mansfield just has 1 loss. They had like 4 turnovers last week against Greenland, and ended the game. There's like 3 or 4 turnovers and 1 turnover on down. So they did not play very good. They've got a good running back combo in Fisher Wilsley and Tyler Woolbright. So it's another, smash mouth, run them down your throat kind of game. Who wins the line of scrimmage? That's kind of how it was determined. I mean, Lavaca will throw it around a little bit, and Charleston with Scott will, but a lot of it is running the football. So I think that's what this one will come down to too. I think Charleston has emerged as one of the better teams in the state, along with Boonville. That game will be coming up in a couple weeks too. So you're looking at the class, one of the class conferences in 3A right here.
season's back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet Online, where the game starts.